Kripto Para programından merhaba. Önümüzdeki yarım saat boyunca birlikte olacağız. Kripto varlıkları konuşacağız. Değerli bir isim bugün bizimle beraber. dYdX Foundation CEO'su Charles Dossier'i ağırlıyoruz. Charles, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So welcome to our show and welcome to Turkey. I would say first of all, and we have a lot of things to talk about regarding the cryptocurrencies. And first of all, in Turkey, cryptocurrencies has been very popular, especially maybe 2 years ago. And globally, it was also like that. And given the high inflation in Turkey, how do you see the Turkish market, the interest in Turkey? Is it still hot or is it a little bit fading?
I think the crypto is a global asset. It's a global trend right now, and we see trends in Turkey which also reflects in other parts of the world. Inflation has been hitting people very hard, so everyone has been looking around what could be potentially an edge to this inflation. Crypto is not the solution. It's part of some solutions people decide to explore. Crypto is also volatile, so it's not a solution, definitely not there as well. But when you think of how inflation has been hitting people, if you think of the world today, the world we are in has multiple crises. You can call it a poly-crisis world, where there is a climate crisis, currencies crisis, government crisis, a war is going on. So people need to anchor their trust somewhere. And depending on which part of the world you are, maybe you are more affected by a political crisis, or maybe currencies are being devaluated and it eats your savings. People will look at real estate, people will look back at stock market. But crypto in general has been existing for more than 10 years now, and it has up and downs, like maybe the internet in the early days, where there is kind of growth in waves. But it's definitely something which is catching attention. If you look at the global market of crypto, and we can speak later about crypto derivatives, it's trillions of dollars every day. So here in Turkey, there is definitely attention. Overall, the market right now is kind of a little bit in a kind of quiet stage.
Yeah, we're mentioning it as referring to it as the winter, crypto winter, right? I will ask you about that, like when we would be out of it. But you said like polycrises world, but how about the crises in the ecosystem? Because that's also something that we have seen, especially this year started on a very rocky atmosphere. So what would you say about that?
That's a very good question. So there is volatility for the asset itself, but you're definitely right. There is also crisis in the crypto industry overall. We've seen centralized exchanges like FTX. I think in Turkey there is also centralized exchanges which have misbehaved, to say the least, and harmed many people. So you're definitely right. It's a young industry which is having this kind of maturing cycles, and there is crisis in crypto as well. I think decentralized finance, when you move more of the infrastructure in the trustable and decentralized networks, it brings a response to that. So there is today in the market of crypto ways to essentially access crypto in a centralized way, so giving away your money to these exchanges and trying to get your crypto back. But there is also new solutions such as DeFi, and dYdX is one example of that, where the infrastructure is totally trustless. So you don't need to lose custody of your assets. And I think it's one of the response, DeFi industry in general.
So why don't all the exchanges go for that then, if it's a like groundbreaking solution?
Because the reason people don't go directly to DeFi, because DeFi is more young, crypto exchanges exist for some time. And there is also, I would say, a very human thing. Even though crypto is building trustless technology, technology which where you don't need to trust anyone, people and citizens in general still want to anchor their trust somewhere. You don't want your trust to be in the air. So that's why there is still a lot of people which are doing financial services with a bank because they want to be able to call someone, they want to have kind of being reinsured by a big logo and different branches. But there is also a new generation which wants to have global access to financial products and are much more comfortable to have a totally native digital financial experience. And that's where DeFi and crypto come into the game.
And where do the regulations come in the game? Because that's something also we've been talking about, and the pricing is maybe dependent on that potential regulations as well. But do you think that the regulations should be done in a way not hurting the core meaning of cryptocurrencies, which is being decentralized? So what do you think on that?
Regulations are very important and very welcome. I think the industry overall have a responsibility to stay engaged with regulators all over the world to explain the technology and to explain how much decentralized finance mission overlaps with the regulator's mission. In decentralized finance, if we explain this and illustrate well enough with regulators, we can show a very healthy marketplace, we can show safe custody of the asset of the users. So that's very important to stay engaged with regulators. Regulators are also helping to clean up the market from bad actors. We've seen this in Turkey some weeks ago. We see that in the US this week with the trial of FTX founder. So regulations are good for the space. I think the same way the internet was regulated at some point, it takes some time for regulators, it takes some time for government to understand that you should not regulate technology, but you should regulate operators of the technology. And I think it has been a long process before governments started to understand that you cannot regulate the internet, but you can regulate the internet access providers and making sure that they don't harm users or they prevent users from having access to wrong things. And I think we are exactly in the same type of pattern where regulators are more and more engaged with the technology itself. A very good example of kind of a blessing on the blockchain technology and blockchain industry is how much central banks are building on CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. So even the fiat and even the domestic currencies are moving into blockchain. Yeah. So at some point in time, all of this will kind of converge and will create a new generation of much more efficient, fair, better distributed type of finance. And maybe the crypto industry is a kind of pioneer, but regulations, again, are important, are welcome. They need to be, as you mentioned, not kind of covering the innovation, but being understanding the innovation, making sure innovation is safe for users, and overall building a more solid and healthier industry.
So you've been making the comparison between the internet and the evolving of the internet and cryptocurrencies. And it took like maybe 30 years for the internet to come to this point. And you just mentioned that Bitcoin is 10 years old, maybe 11, something like that. So my question is, because you have been in the system for a long time, can you make an educated guess and just say, when would you assume that this all will be more welcomed, more like a regular part of us, not something people question, but because nobody questions the internet anymore, but back in the day they did. So
that's true.
Regulated and like trusted. When is around which 2000s will it happen?
I think the growth of this industry will happen in multiple ways. I think many people will start to use blockchain without even knowing. Maybe they will start to receive loyalty points from their brands. They will buy a ticket for the stadium and the soccer match, which will be an NFT. Some other people will start to use CBDCs. Some others will start maybe to explore the crypto assets and decide or not to invest in this thing. In terms of pure decentralized finance, I think we are looking more at a 5 years to 10 years timeline, to be very, very honest with you. There is some early adopters, but the market also has different type of users. Some of them will be fast adopters, some of them will come later. And I think CBDCs will be kind of a catalyst for many people to engage and join the crypto industry, not with Bitcoin, but with domestic fiat currencies. And concert tickets, maybe NFTs from brands, maybe different use case of blockchain will come. So I believe the people will barely realize they are using blockchain, and this will be step by step. For finance, CBDCs are just a few years away from us, and crypto assets are already 10 years. We see a lot of news in this market. Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF are being released in the US, and the US usually have a strong influence on other regulators' views. So all of this is taking time. We are very excited. Many people are impatient, but I think we're looking at a 5 years to 10 years timeline.
Okay, so it would be in total like 20 years maybe after its founding. So you briefly mentioned the derivatives. Can you please elaborate on that? So how much of the market do the derivatives form? And what does that mean for the market, for the investors?
What is very interesting is the crypto markets are structuring themselves the same way the equity markets are structured today. So if you look at the equity market, on the equity markets, when there is one company shares being traded, there is 10 company shares being traded on the derivatives. In crypto, we find exactly the same pattern. So when there is $1 of crypto being bought or sold, there is $10 of crypto being bought or sold on derivative. So at dYdX, we focus on crypto derivative business. So it's a market which is 10 times bigger than the spot market. And there is today about $3 to $4 trillion of crypto being exchanged every day. And within this part, there is the vast majority is actually crypto derivatives. So it really shows that it's an evolution of the traditional finance into digital finance. And the same type of patterns are clearly coming with an oversized derivative market size versus the spot market.
Okay, so and I also mentioned that I would be asking about when the potential crypto winter would be over. So do you have any guesses for that? Do you have any, how to say, any ideas? Because you made the comparison with internet that, there are, it's a volatile market, we know that on a daily basis, but after that, there had been a winter before which lasted for 2 years. Do you think it's the same thing now? After 2 or 3 years, do you think the market will start going up again? And what does this depend on?
Absolutely. I think the cycles of crypto are changing over the years. That's number one. So the first kind of cycles were in a kind of a closed loop within the industry itself. And crypto is now becoming really a trusted asset and a legitimate asset in the financial industry globally. So the crypto winters in general or cycles are getting shorter. This is one thing. The other thing which is important to note as well is that overall the crypto markets being part of the economy are much more dependent on the macroeconomics. So if the federal American banks is printing money to solve some problems, it will influence the equity market together with the crypto market also. So I think crypto has entered really the world of finance and is as legitimate as equity and is much more dependent on macroeconomics. 5 years behind us, we had central banks printing money and bringing liquidity on markets, and everyone was having some kind of a bump on whatever category of assets, and crypto has benefited from that.
The risk appetite was really high, and the crypto has benefited from that. But right now, everything is very uncertain. Nobody's certain what's going to happen maybe tomorrow, and we have been changing. The subjects have been changing. So. What do you think is the main driver of the cryptocurrencies, the pricing of the cryptocurrencies, let's say Bitcoin or Ethereum? What is this dependent on right now?
The big driver will be inflation. Many countries are suffering inflation. If I remember well, there was more than 60+% of inflation in Turkey. It's one example of people saving kind of vanishing because of the economy and the state of the economy. So that's one thing which will make people look for other solutions. There is also liquidity, which is kind of constraints right now. What could be a catalyst might be a financial event, maybe a bank collapsing somewhere and triggering some more activity and more support from central banks and bringing the full wave. Otherwise, I strongly believe that the crypto asset in general and the crypto networks are the new base of trust for our global economies. And it will keep growing in an organic manner, but some bump of growth might be coming from macroeconomic events, maybe a financial event, but otherwise the growth will remain very, very steady and kind of organic.
A few years ago, we were discussing if Bitcoin, for example, would replace gold as a safe haven, but it didn't happen. Do you think it has the potential still to replace any kind of asset as a safe haven?
I think it definitely will. If you look at the growth of and the price of gold over the past 24 months versus the price of Bitcoin, the volatility is there, but eventually the performance is there. I think there is also generations. Thousands of years ago, people were believing strongly in silver and maybe shale, and then people, the kind of society, through a social consensus, decided that gold was more valuable. So I think this kind of social trust and foundations for where value can be kind of hosted, evolve with years, and I strongly believe that our societies are becoming more digital overall, and a digital gold is making sense and making sense to more and more people. Will it replace gold? I don't think so. Will it be sitting next to gold and experience a faster growth and faster mind share than gold for Bitcoin or for Ethereum, for example? Certainly.
So you are optimistic that the winter will eventually be over and more people will come into cryptocurrencies. But again, like we talked about it, but trust is a main thing. And what else there needs to be, in your opinion, needs to be changed in order for the cryptocurrencies, the interest to increase? Or like, do you think more technology is needed, or is trust missing, regulations? What is that, the ingredients of the cryptocurrencies to flourish more?
Cryptocurrencies needs to bring more new use cases and tangible use cases. So we need to move away from pure speculations and bring new use cases. NFTs have been very successful a few years ago, and then they vanished. But there is an underlying technology which is very interesting. NFTs could become ticket for concerts, could become like a deed representing
like a daily part of a daily life. It can
part of the daily life, absolutely. Then there is also a question of distribution. How crypto can be more available in different type of venues. I believe that the world of finance will keep evolving, and the new fintech companies will be actually having as back office blockchain networks and crypto networks, which will be handling stable coins, CBDCs issued by central banks, and various products on the back end. And the new fintech will not be built like a bank. They will be built like very differently. So fintech in the front and DeFi at the back. I think it's definitely a trend which will be coming. And if you look at what central banks are doing, one example is a collaboration which was made public a month ago between the central banks of Singapore, France, and Switzerland. And they were tokenizing their respective domestic currencies, fiat currencies, and starting to use DeFi mechanism to essentially do some FX and swaps between different currencies. So all of these things are progressing. I think we need to think of additional tangible use cases as well as better distribution. And I'm sure that there is, in the space of licenses for crypto activities, I think we will keep seeing like crypto-native companies, such as crypto exchanges. And I'm convinced that we will see more and more banks, traditional banks, applying also for this type of license. So they will bring to their existing customer base, which are millions, access to digital assets and crypto assets in general. And this will be essentially accelerating the distribution.
And my last question is, where in this journey will you be taking part? What are your future plans, goals, objectives?
So for dYdX, we are today the #1 decentralized exchange for derivative. We think 10x, because the potential of internet has been phenomenal. The potential of decentralized finance is also phenomenal. So we are very excited to launch the dYdX chain, and there will be also new features such as permissionless markets, where people will be able to create markets by themselves and express their opinion in the market. So we are very excited. There is this week in Istanbul a big crypto builders conference where engineers meet and mingle, and we had a great time here. And I feel the spring after winter is coming soon.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for joining our show. dYdX Foundation CEO'su Charles Tossi bizimle beraberdi. Böylelikle programımızı noktalıyoruz. Yeniden görüşmek üzere. Hoşça kalın.